Welcome to the Dad Task Force. My name is Brad. Davon is unable to make it today. He is booked out with busyness with family and work. But we have Forfeit Fatherhood, or Rod Richard II, on today to fill in his place and just talk about what he's got going on to help bring up dads. So Rod is a life and mindset coach who helps men with the transitions in their life, whether it be from employee to entrepreneur, student to employee, or man to father. He helps his clients grow into the best versions of themselves. As a husband, father, and entrepreneur, Rod started his coaching business officially in 2018 to help other men deal with sometimes overwhelming prospect of starting a new business, life, and family while still holding on to their own identity. Prior to becoming a life coach, he has spent over 10 years as a strength and conditioning coach, a loving husband, a father, and an entrepreneur. Today, Rod offers a wide variety and range of programs and services, from individual coaching to group coaching and workshops. Rod, welcome to the task force.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I like that intro, man. That music. I don't know if they could see me, but I was like, oh man, I was in there. Like, you gotta play that again.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. There was a couple of different samples, and that was the one we landed on. So I'm a
Good
fan
choice.
as well. So let's dive head first into this. You're married, obviously, and you have kids, obviously. So how many people are in your family?
So I have two daughters and my wife, and actually my father-in-law lives with us, and we got a dog. So let's say, what is that? Five people and a dog.
Okay. And how old are your kids?
So my oldest just turned 12. My youngest will be 10 on the 1st of October.
All right. All right. And have you started with the boys knocking on the door or trying to get the attention of your oldest?
Not that I'm aware of, and we have these conversations pretty often. Well, no one's knocking at the door, that's for sure.
For sure.
And no text messages, no phone calls. She just got a phone for her birthday, so I mean, I'm that's the one thing that I'm worried about. But no, as far as I know, there's no boy interest on either side, or hers or the other. But there was, like, in elementary school, this was two years ago. There was like a little boy that liked, how little elementary
Yeah.
school boys like you. They want to push you and bump into you and that kind of thing. And but outside of that, we've been kind of steering clear, so I'm good.
Well, that's good. You don't got to deal with that. It's we have homecoming coming up for the next 2 weeks, and both of my daughters have a date for their school and for the boys' school that asked them to it. So the next 2 weeks are just going to be, you know,
Yeah,
dealing with
no, I
that.
know.
It's exciting. So tell me a little bit about yourself. I'm going over your website and I'll throw it up on the screen just so people can see it. Forfeitfatherhood.com. Sorry, wrong button. And there it is. And just looking through it, and what is it that you do, and what is your goal and purpose for bringing this to the forefront of a man's life?
Yeah, so I'll start with purpose, because I think that's a very pivotal thing for a man to know and have at least an understanding of. My purpose, I discovered when I found out I was going to become a father. Up until that point, I was pursuing a career. I was on a very fast track to achieving what I thought was the pinnacle of success in that particular career. When I found out I was going to be a father, and immediately in the moment, I realized that none of that mattered to me, and that father was going to be, or dad, or daddy, or whichever one of those you want to use, was the most important title that I was ever going to have. And so I committed to fatherhood. What led me to becoming a coach, what led me to creating a podcast and the social media and all of those things, is because, one, I felt like when I was in the process of becoming a father, there wasn't enough conversation about fatherhood. There's the baby books and what to expect when you're expecting and all those kind of things, and they kind of prepare you for the pregnancy, but really not much happens after that. Like, there's not, or at the time, right? This is 2011, not a whole lot of conversation outside of that. And so I, started talking to guys that I thought were pretty good fathers. And my dad was, he's a father, obviously, but the last time he was a father to a baby was, at that point, 30 years ago, right? So he didn't have a whole lot of great newborn baby advice for me, other than, sleep when they sleep kind of stuff. So I started having conversations with guys, and I realized that I wasn't the only one, because even the guys I was talking to was like, man, I wish I would have asked somebody. And so I started kind of on this mission to learn as much as I could about fatherhood, because if this was going to be my purpose, if this was the reason that I was put here, then I need to know everything about it, or as much as I could. And in that process, um, you know, I'm I'm a sharing type of person, and so I was like, I got to put this out there somehow. And so I started the social media kind of track. I think I started with Instagram first, which is where I'm probably most active still to this day. The other ones I've kind of in and out with a little bit, but Instagram and the podcast are my means of sharing the things that I've learned about fatherhood. The podcast is almost literally the same as those early conversations that I used to have about fatherhood. It's like it's an opportunity for me to have a conversation with a father about fatherhood, about his journey, about some of the things that they've encountered. Because one, I can learn from them, and two, I know somebody out there has those same questions, and I can share those with them. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. As far as coaching, like you mentioned in the intro, I think some of the biggest obstacles or the biggest hurdles for men is these kind of unspoken expectations of transition. Is when you turn 18, all of a sudden you're a man, and no, there's not
Right.
like a whole lot of preparation for that, right? Like if you're lucky, your father kind of tells you some stuff, but 9 times out of 10, and I know, I'm 41, my dad wasn't the most open with sharing his experiences and emotions. He just got it done.
Right.
And so I had to learn from seeing him do it, or maybe he might have like slipped something out every once in a while. But my preparation for manhood was just through what I saw. And so I know there's a lot of guys like that. And then the other side of that is guys who don't have a father at all.
Hmm.
Definitely aren't getting that instruction of what it takes to be or become a man. And then shortly after becoming a man, quite a few of us go right into either getting married or having children. And those are two more of the most dramatic changes you're ever going to make in your life.
Yeah.
So within a span of 3 to 5 years, you go from being a kid to being a husband, father, man. And a lot of guys struggle with that. And so knowing that, I didn't have the same experience, but I know even at my age, I got married later on in life, and me and my wife had been together for a while. I was a man for a few years before we got married, and I had some experiences. But even like going from being a boyfriend to being a husband, like going from being a husband to being a father, like these are struggles that no one prepares you for. And so my job as a coach is to kind of almost be like a tour guide. Is because you could definitely go on vacation, or you can go to a trip, or you can go hiking, but if you don't have a guide, you're kind of just fumbling around hoping you don't step on a snake, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you've got a tour guide, not only do they tell you where not to step because they've already stepped there, but they also can point out some of the beautiful things that are along the journey. Like, hey, slow down, take a look at this. You're going to enjoy this. This is going to be here for now, then it's gone. Like that kind of stuff. And then, obviously, as guys have questions, things come up. There's some common trends that kind of happen with guys who are becoming fathers for the first time, that they were kind of able to talk about or discuss prior to them, running headfirst into it. So yeah, so I would say as a coach, I'm more like a tour guide. I'm not a therapist. I can't diagnose your past. We can speak to it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But I'm more future paced. Like this is what's going to happen. This is who do you want to be, right? And we talk about like a GPS system. Is we got to know where you are right now and where you want to go, and then I'm going to help you find the path to get there.
I think that's an interesting perspective of you can't change what somebody's done or what they've had done to them.
Mhm.
You might have a different perspective, but it seems from just talking to other men and even wives that bring it up, there is this like this desire to hold on to something and use that as the pinnacle point to blame why you're acting the way you're acting instead of
Mm.
addressing it and moving on and like, all right, well, this happened. It made me who I am. And this is just what you have to deal with versus I'm going to be better. Do you run into that in your coaching business?
Yeah, yeah, we definitely do. And I think it's because your past and the things that have happened to you become a part of your identity. You when someone asks you about who you are, somehow that comes up. You mention the things that you've done or the places that you've been, and they kind of define who you are now. But I think even though those things got you to where you are right now, they don't really play any role in where you're going. They may have taught you lessons, they may have given you some different perspectives on life and things like that. But I often remind guys is that you may not be responsible for what happened to you. Like some things may have happened to you that you were out of your control,
Yeah.
but you are responsible for what happens next and how you respond to it. Right? Something can happen to you today with all the best intentions in the world. So you can go out of the house today and something terrible can happen to you, and that's not your fault. But how you respond to it will definitely be. And
Sure.
so you have to kind of like, I don't want to say disassociate yourself from it because it is what made you and you do need to have some understanding of it, but you can't let it shackle you either, right? It's just where you are now, where you've been, and you have to have some memory of it and you have to have some clarity and understanding of it. But then you have to be able to move forward.
Right. So that's, we're talking about training and experience, right? You're providing training, they have experiences, and they either failed at some point or had a failure, put upon them. And you either allow that failure to dictate how you move forward, or you turn that failure as a opportunity to start in a different perspective and a different path. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to bring that up to ask you this question and be intentional about it. Do you see a trend in men towards apathy?
Let me clarify. What exactly do you mean by that? Let me, because I don't want to jump too far into
Sure.
it.
Um, so one of the biggest issues that we at the dad task force that we work on
Mhm.
is in trying to encourage men to be better fathers. And we talked about you brought it up. Either some kids don't have a dad or they have a dad that is not present because they're trying to do their side hustle or they need their time to focus on themselves, so they hang out with their buddies or they do a bunch of things that aren't family oriented. And then or you see it when men that go to church and they want to serve, but they're serving as a mechanism to be at church, but not actually sit in church and be fed.
Gotcha.
And all of that tends, at least from maybe a 10,000-foot view, to kind of have an attitude towards apathy.
Okay. Yeah, I think I had to. I think you're right in that. I think there is a trend or a tendency to lean into that. But I think it's I can't really point to why that's a thing, right? Because I think there was a time where if you look back and we talk about stoicism and some of the things that we talk about in the past where guys were really tough, right? Like you hear older guys all the time say that guys nowadays are soft, and the men that are older than them say that they're soft. And there's kind of this trend of things are getting softer, right? But I think what may have been is that guys were so tough that there's there's a spectrum of toughness, right? And guys are so
Right.
tough and unemotional and all that that their son saw that and said, "Hey, I'm not going to be that." And so they started trending and moving to this other direction. And I think where we are now is like we're on the full swing of a pendulum, right? It's like we're completely on the other side of that thing. And I think there's some misguided thoughts about what it means to even be a man, to be a leader, to be a father. I think we're at a point now where everyone has an opinion on what it is, and everyone's opinion is right. unless and if you disagree,
Yeah.
then it's the issue, right? Which doesn't make sense because everyone's opinion can't be right. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, but it
Right.
doesn't make your opinion correct. But I think we're at a point now where you can't say that, and you can't.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I'm safe saying that here, but I don't know in
No,
other
yeah.
places, right? Um,
It's that's so funny you said that, like, literally verbatim. So there's, in Boise, there's a Boise Parents for Kids group on Facebook. So we started a dad task force chapter here in Boise. And the first rule
mhm,
was, hey, everybody has an opinion. That doesn't mean yours is right. Just you got to learn from perspective and be willing to consider that. So it's just tangent, but I'm so happy to hear that you're on the same page, at least
yeah, yeah,
in
and
ideology.
here's the funny thing is my friends, I have like a circle of fathers, and our kids hang out together, and we spend our like vacations together and all that. And the guys are like, man, you have an ability to separate the message from the messenger, because I obviously have
Mm,
things that I believe in and stances that I'm stand firm on, but I'm willing to hear the other side. Like,
yeah.
I'm really interested. Actually, I'm probably more interested in hearing what you have to say when you oppose me than somebody who's on my side. Because one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to strengthen my stance because what you say sounds crazy to me, or you might actually say something where I'm like, "Whew, wait a minute. I got to think about this a little bit." Like, you might have some points that make sense to me. And I think when we get in a position where we only surround ourselves with people who wholly agree or blindly agree with what we say, we handicap our ability to be complete. I think we're given the ability for free thought and to be able to, assess situations for ourselves, even if we're wrong in those assessments. Right, we still have the ability to do that, and we should do that. And I think, like I said, we're in a situation now, or a time now, where you can't disagree with people. you just you can't. You have to have the same thought as everybody else, and if not, your name called until until you're canceled, I guess.
Here's to that point, how do you manage your kids, or at least guide them in having these conversations? Because I know they come up at school, whether it's a political issue or a social issue. Um, because my kids will come home and we'll be sitting on the couch or in the car, and they're like, "This is what was said. How do I respond to this?"
Hmm.
And you're like, "Well, let's first you have to have an opinion on it, and it's okay to not have an opinion. You can just listen, but how do you manage that?"
Very similar. I think one, I'm great. Okay, so you heard that. Now, what did that make you think? Not like your teacher said it and you immediately have to align with what your teacher said because your teacher's usually right, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
like, when you heard it, like, what did that make you think? How did that make you feel? Okay, cool. Now, here's my perspective, and yours it might align with the teachers. It might be different. Now, after hearing what I said and hearing what whoever teacher, friend, somebody at school said, now you have to formulate your own opinion, right? Where do you stand on it? Like, based on your experiences at 12 years old, you know, what do you what do you think?
Yeah.
And then let me give you some context, because most of these things that we're talking about are going to be adult things. Like, you just haven't had the lifespan to experience and to have a fully like informed opinion about it. So I'll give you some context, relevant to a 12-year-old. Like, this is what this means based on, I can't go too in depth with some stuff because some stuff is like,
Sure.
we don't need to talk about at this age. But
Right.
let me give you this in a nutshell. Okay, now, you can have an opinion, and like you said, you don't have to have an opinion, just like, not yet. You don't have to make a stand. Like, no one's asking you to make a stance right now. You can just be weighing your options and just hearing people's opinions and sides, and that's okay.
And I think that's an important message that kids need to hear is you don't have to choose a side. There's
Right.
it doesn't have to lean itself into one way or the other. You can maintain a position of neutrality and be just fine. There's no rules that say that you have to choose right now. And
Yeah.
I feel like they get pressured into that. So, jumping back into forfeit fatherhood, you have four pillars of fatherhood. You want to cover those?
Yeah, so the four pillars of fatherhood are what I kind of boiled down my fatherhood experience at the time when I came up with them anyway. And there was like these kind of four central things that I thought were important to becoming the best possible father I could be. And I still lean on them. It's not like they've changed. It's just they were formulated in an older version of myself, right? In a 1.0 version of myself, right? And then they're not in any particular order. There's one that's first for me, and I always say it first, but it could be depending on your situation. One thing might be more important than the other in that moment, right? But faith, family, finance, and fitness. I think faith for me is always going to be first because I am going to lead my family in a godly way, right? Like
Yep.
I can't really separate myself from my relationship with my creator. Like I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and so I lead my family in that way, right? Like I love my family in that way, and it's really hard for me to not have that thing be first because that is my first relationship is with my God, and then my wife, and then my children, right? And so for me to
Yeah.
be the leader of this household, I can't you can't take that one out and then be the others without it, right? It kind of guides my path. It's my morals, my values, the things that I believe in, right? And so for me, it comes first. But again, like I said, depending on your situation, like your faith pillar might be rock solid, and it might be your financial pillar that's lacking, and so you might need to focus on finances, and the financial piece is obviously important because one, as a father, you're a provider. Um, Sometimes that's financial, a lot of times it's financial, but we know like kids and houses and cars and wives are expensive, right? So
Yeah. Sure.
if you don't have your if you don't have your financial pillar in order, that house is going to fall, right? um Family is obvious. I think your family is the important thing that goes with fatherhood. Like a father and a family go together. I know a lot of guys have gone through different things in their relationship with the mother of their children, so their family situation looks different. But I think even in a co-parenting situation, that family pillar and that relationship between you and the mother of your children has to be somewhat strong because you are still going to parent that child, whether you're together parenting that child or parenting from separate households. There's a whole lot of things that go into that relationship, right? Your children are going to see how you two react, and that's going to be the model of relationship that they see. And
It's true.
that's how they're going to build their relationships is based off of the relationship because you're their first one. You're the for daughters, you're the first man that they ever love. I mean sons too, but
Mhm.
like for daughters specifically, right? And then for sons, you're like their first role model. So like if you in your relationship with their mother are not very good, then hey, that's what we do in relationship. Or
Yeah.
for your daughters, or hey, that's what men do to women in relationships. And so
Mhm.
you're setting the example, whether you like to believe it or not. So family, huge. And then fitness, for me personally, obviously a strength and conditioning coach, so fitness is kind of in my wheelhouse naturally. But I enjoy being a father at a high level, right? I like, my kids come home and they want to wrestle. I got daughters, but they want to wrestle. They want to be thrown around, right? We're in the pool. They want me to throw them to the other side of the pool. My daughter, they're both athletes, but my oldest daughter is fast for her age. She thinks she could beat me in a race. I got to stay in shape because she can't beat me until she's an adult. Like I've already made this, you have to be 18 to beat me. And so I got to stay in shape. I can't pull a hammy in a race. She's not going to set up
Yep.
like, oh, you got hurt. Oh, come on. No, she's not going to go for that. So I have to stay in shape. And then the other part of that is like, I've always wanted to be like the old grandfather at Christmas, where all the kids are sitting around me in a chair and I'm telling the
Mhm.
stories about how I used to walk uphill in the snow for 5 miles. Like I want to be that guy. And the only way I get there is if I take care of my body, right? If like I'm
Yeah.
not taking care of myself, my health and my fitness, something's gonna come get me. Now I can't control freak accidents, right? I can't control natural disasters and things like that. But what I can control, I want to control as much as I can. And so fitness is an extremely important part of it for me as well.
And it's a choice too. Like you can choose to engage with physical activity, or you can choose to not to. That is not something somebody can take away from you. There's always an
Yeah.
option. guys in, less than ideal situations that still find a way to do push-ups. So
Yeah.
you're not wrong on that.
Yeah.
So I love the faith pillar. I think it's really important because you have to have something to believe in, and then it gives
Hmm.
you a role model, and you're setting the tone, temperature, and pace for your family by saying this is where I'm at, and because of that, this is, I love my wife, and she's my number one, and you guys fall below that. Um, Not that you're not important, but you need to understand that my focus is on you, because I think a lot of times dads and moms they'll put the kids in front of the partner, and then all of a sudden resentment starts to build because I don't have this thing that I had before you, and now that you're here, you've taken that away from me, and now I have either resentment towards the partner or towards the children, and that's just not a good space to be in as a dad.
Yeah.
Do you find, like, your daughter's a little young, but not so young that you may not have heard some of this stuff, when she brings to you uncomfortable, difficult situations, how do you have those conversations with her? This episode is brought to you by StreamKits at StreamKits.com. If you're into content creation, whether you're a streamer, a podcaster, an influencer, or you have a more traditional production need for your content, StreamKits has you covered. From the solo IRL backpack man on the street interview kit, all the way up to a more studio quality 4-camera, 4-audio, stable mount system, they have what you're looking for. Look, in the last year, I filmed plenty of training content for some pretty big clients, and what I started off with was my phone. Then I upgraded to a fancy DSLR. But I had to buy tripods, I had to buy lenses, I had to buy audio interfaces and microphones. And as the camera upgrade or the phone upgrades, now I've got to buy different interfaces so that audio continues to work. And it just keeps draining the bank account for equipment just to put the content out. Now, with StreamKits, you get everything that you need in every package. And you get a camera, you get a couple of lenses, you get the mounting equipment, you get the audio interface, unless you choose not to get the audio interface, and you get high quality production level equipment that's super affordable to allow you to start streaming your content today. Now let's just put it into perspective. The most expensive kit on their website is 4 cameras, 4 microphones, 4 headsets, all of the interface stuff that all comes together and comes out one USB cord into your computer. $4,199. Go to Amazon and get a dual camera entry-level streaming setup. You're gonna look at about $4,500. Do the math. And it gets better. If you want a 3-camera entry-level broadcasting system for your production quality, $15,000. But StreamKits is a third of that price with 4 cameras, 4 microphones, 4 headsets, all the stuff you need to put it together to make it look cool, and then get you on the road to streaming today. Those other systems are great. They probably work really well, but you have to have a learning curve to understand how to use the camera, how to set it up, how to manage lighting, how to manage the data transfer, how to get everything to interoperate and connect so that it shows up on your computer. That takes time. The more time it takes to learn these things, the less time you have to actually put your content out, which then is affecting your bottom line, because now you're not making money on your content because you're stuck at the very beginning trying to get ready to run the race. StreamKit systems offer a simple plug-and-play design that shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to put together and get going. And with discount code TASKFORCE15, you get an additional 15% off of production quality equipment that's so easy to use because it's plug-and-play that you can start sharing your content with the rest of us right now. So go to StreamKits.com and enter TASKFORCE15 at checkout. Hey dads, does your relationship with your kid matter to you? Of course it does. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a dad. You'd just be some dude that has kids. Is it a good relationship? Do you have strong lines of communication? Do you have the ability to connect with your teenager and have meaningful conversation that they hear what you're saying and you hear what they're saying? If you do, great. This class is perfect for you. If you don't, great. This class is perfect for you. Because in 21 days, you are given 5 to 10 minutes of daily instruction plus a daily challenge to practice what you learned in class to improve the relationship with your kids. At the end of the day, we want our kids to be safe, but they can't be safe if they aren't willing to come to us with the scary stuff that keeps them up at night. So what you're going to do is improve that relationship. You're going to make sure that your kid knows they have a safe place to land even when they screw up, because you have set the tone, temperature, and pace in your house, and you've done that with DadCom. This is designed to create habit-forming tactics and techniques and strategies in communication taught by me, a hostage negotiator. I've been around the country training cops how to negotiate people out of very difficult situations. I've been involved in very difficult situations, and now I want to give this strategies and the tactics that we use in the field and put it into your hands so that your household is peaceful. If you're not quite sure, we also offer the free self-awareness and self-control class that comes with this or is a standalone product. But if you jump in right now for the $35 pre-launch price, you get the DadCom 21 days, the free self-awareness class, self-control class, the ebook to the self-awareness, self-control class, the DadCom 21 Day to a Better Relationship with Your Kid ebook that sells on Amazon for $20, access to the Facebook page, as well as early access to all merchandise Dad Task Force and Tactical Talker related. So go now to thetacticaltalker.com, sign up for DadCom 21 days to a better relationship with your kid, and do it today. And it'll only cost you about $1.65 a day.
Well, I think the most important part about that is like there's gonna like you just have to be accepting of there's going to be some uncomfortable conversations. Like they're coming. Um, but well, two things. Let me get through that and then I'll get to this next thing. Um, I think what makes it easiest is having conversations all the time. Like we are constantly talking. Like we're together, we're talking. We don't really have. We do like we'll veg out and watch a show together. Or we'll watch. My kids love Star Wars. We'll watch 3 hour Star Wars movie. Stuff like that. But we have very normal conversation and always have. I don't. I talk to my kids like they're adults, not in the negative sense, like I'm cursing them
Yeah.
out or like I'm
No, you're
talking,
right.
disrespectfully, but when I ask how's your day, like we're having a conversation now. I'm not just waiting. I'm not saying how's your day and you say fine and then I just go about my business and go do whatever I was going to do anyway. Like I'm actually interested in the things that they're interested in. I'm actually interested in having conversation about what's going on at school. I'm actually interested in like what was the funny thing that happened today at recess? Like what were you guys doing? Like was there anything like, that gave you trouble today? Like I want to have those conversations. And because we have those conversations so often, when something comes up, it they don't feel weird about it, and I don't have to feel weird about it, right? And this is something I've told guys that I work with before is that you have to have you have to talk war during peacetime, right? And what I mean by that is you have to have conversation like when nothing's going on. There's no reason to have conversation. Sometimes you just got to lean in and go, "Hey, man, I was thinking about the other day, when I was in middle school, I got to eighth grade because my daughter's in seventh grade. It's like when I got to eighth grade, you know, boys and girls started kind of really liking each other. And I'm saying this because you asked me earlier, boys and girls start really liking each other. And I don't know if you guys are there yet. This is a different time and maybe things are different, but, are any boys like expressing interest in you? Right. Like I'm going to broach the conversation before she comes to me and goes, oh, well, somebody tried to kiss me today. You know what I mean? I'm not going to wait for her to bring it to me. I'm just because I know, right? I think we all know that some of these things are going to start happening, right? We don't want to talk about it. We don't want them to happen,
No.
but sometimes you got to talk war in times of peace. Like, look, there at some point somebody's going to say something mean about you. They're going to hurt your feelings, and how you react determines how often they're going to continue to do that. And I'm not saying fight anybody or anything, but like you do have to carry yourself in a certain way. So we have these conversations, and luckily I haven't had too many really uncomfortable ones, but I'm open to having them.
I think that's a great perspective. Having conversations in war in times of peace. Now, I'm going to butcher it, but there's a famous saying that says basically men go to war so that they're and study tactics and war stuff so that their kids can study arts and humanity. And it's that same attitude is like you have to we would prefer you to not have to engage in that, but we also want to prepare you for what's coming in the event something is to come.
Yep.
And that's like it's coming. Like just heads up. Not seeing the future, but it's coming. You're gonna
No,
be
I
what?
know, I know.
Um, what? You're an athlete. You're a fitness coach. I've got to ask you this question because I see a variety of opinions. How do you feel about your kids wearing like sweats to school every day? Is that a point?
It's oh man, you know what? That sweats to school, depending on the temperature, doesn't bother me as much. And I say this because you're a Bay Area guy, but in like Oakland, Richmond, when I was in high school, middle school, guys used to wear like pajama pants to school. Pajama pants and Jordans was like a thing for 4 or 5 years. You had some brand new pajama pants and some kind of Jordans or some cool Nikes. So that doesn't bother me as much as like if I go to the gym and someone has on slides or Crocs, that kind of stuff like really grinds my gears. But I am old school in the sense that like I would rather them dress up to go to school. It's really weird to me to be even back then when I was in school, I didn't do it that often just because like I liked to look good and feel good. Like I didn't just roll out of bed actually. Like
Yeah.
I put this on. Like I planned this out. Like I want to dress a certain way. And so when I see kids that I think the craziest thing for me is in the summer here in Southern California, you have kids with hoodies on, and
Yeah.
I can't figure that out for the life of me. I don't know if they're genetically different nowadays, but when it's 110 and you got a black hoodie on with the hood on, there's something wrong with you. There's you're
Yeah.
clearly crazy. But it does I think there is something to say about dressing for how you see yourself or how you want to present yourself. I think when I was younger, my mom used to always tell me, when you go out of this house, you represent this family, so dress like it. And I've carried some of that on to my kids,
Yeah.
and I've heard myself say it before. And so I don't like if they go out of the house and they kind of look a mess, for lack of a better phrase. Um, and so it bothers me somewhat, but not as much. You know,
Yeah.
I can understand it depending on the time of year. But I would rather, if we're going to talk about a week, I'd rather 4 days out of the week you look presentable, and maybe one day
Yeah.
you throw on some sweatpants.
That's what we do in our house. You get one day that you get to dress like that. And it's, not that my kids are not all of them are driving. I grew up in Oklahoma and it doesn't really snow, but it throws ice everywhere.
Hmm.
And I remember getting up one morning and, dressed like what exactly you're talking about slide socks and sweatpants, slid right off the road into a ditch full of snow. And
Oh
I
man,
was 6 miles from the house. So now I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get from here there dressed like this.
yeah,
So it's kind of a pre-planning mindset piece too that goes into it. It drives me up the wall. Kids like I didn't wear these sweats yesterday. I wore. My son's the worst about it. He always tries to sneak in, and I got these for Christmas, Dad. They look good. No, no. Um, let me get back into. So I'm going onto your website, and you've got options. You've got a store. You've got the Father's Roadmap, and I clicked on the Father's Roadmap earlier. Talk me through this roadmap.
so the father's roadmap was last year or maybe 2 years. It's probably 2 years ago now. Working with new fathers, expecting fathers. So kind of that like I just found out I'm going to be a dad to probably about 3 years old. Um, because my own experiences of not having a blueprint for what it's going to be, for what's going to happen once I have my child, like what's next. Um, I started just kind of taking notes. Okay, you know, first year these things came up, these things happened. I had to learn this. Nobody told me about this, and I just kind of started to put together what I say like a roadmap. Right, as I mentioned earlier, like you have when you if you use like GPS or maps or Waze or one of those things, like because you have a phone, it gives you're where you're at, right? And I think most of
Mhm.
us know where we're at. And if you don't yet know where you're at, right, it's kind of you may need to do some self discovery and figure out who you are and where you are right now. But knowing that, next we have to figure out where we want to be. And I think a lot of guys just generally say, "Hey, I want to be a good dad, or I want to be a good father, or I want to be a good husband, a good man, whatever." And that's not specific enough. In the beginning of the roadmap, we talk about like what that means, what it means to be a good father, what it means to be a good man, what does that mean for you, kind of idea. And then the rest of it is kind of a I worked backwards to it, but it's the forward progression to it, essentially. Like it's just a kind of these are some of the things that I did, some of the things I experienced, some of the things that I've gotten from guys that talk to in podcasts, that are a little bit further ahead of me, or maybe did it better than maybe I wanted to. Like they figured it out in another way, and just sharing that stuff because again, like I said, there wasn't that for me, and the conversations that I had, even with my own father, weren't very helpful, I thought. And not to say that my dad isn't great because he's phenomenal, but you know he didn't have a whole lot of, for me. He had a whole lot of "I told you so"s after stuff happened. I was like, you didn't actually tell me though. Like you didn't tell me that. I was like, if you would have told me that, it wouldn't happen. And so that's what this book is to prevent that, like to prevent "I
Okay.
told you so" is to give you an opportunity to kind of learn some of these things ahead of time and prepare yourself and plan your journey to what you consider to be the best father, husband, leader you can be.
That's awesome. I think it's important. So we now the dad task force, not necessarily is it's a subdivision of my side project, which is the tactical talker, where
Mhm.
we are focusing on like life skill training stuff. So right now the only course we have up is dadcom, and it's a habit forming course for men to learn how to communicate with their kids. And the free version right now is all about what you're talking about, a self-awareness and self-control. Because if you are the first thing that your kids experience, how do I manage this? How do I deal with this? How do I act? How do I do these things? And if you don't have control of yourself, you're just setting your children up for failure in the future. So we really
Yeah.
want to focus on like, and we break it down into like the minutia, like how do you assess what you're intaking with your senses, to comparing that to your ideology and your spiritual or psychological perspectives of things, and then even further into how are you physiologically reacting, and then being able to dial in that thing that's causing you to have that reaction. Because I think you said it at the very beginning, there are plenty of books of what to read about how to deal with your wife's pregnancy. But once that baby's here, there ain't a whole lot out there for men to understand how to be a good dad. And, it breaks down to being present and being a good example and encouraging the behavior you want to see repeated. But having a roadmap, having a podcast like yours, having a social media feed that fills you with encouragement and even some sharpening, as it were, like the iron sharpens iron. We always
Hmm.
talk about that, but in order for iron to sharpen iron, one of you has to be harder than the other person.
Yeah.
You can't be sharpened by somebody that's weak or weaker than you. And so you have to seek out men that have come before you that are a little bit more road worn, that have a perspective of experience to bring that into your life and to pour into that you trust and ask questions to. And I think that from what I can tell, based on your website and your social media, like there's a reason we asked you to be on the Task Force podcast, because you are literally personifying all of these aspects of that. So, one, thank you for your time and being on here. Um, is there anything else that you would like to promote? Because I know you have a store and you have a coaching business. If if I can point people towards you, where do you want them to go?
Um, Before we get there, I do want to comment on what you were just talking about and what you guys offer. I think we know because we've heard it time and time again that the key to a relationship is good communication. I think we don't look at our fatherhood as a relationship.
Mm,
And it's a one of your deepest relationships. It's a relationship between you and your child. That communication is just as important as the relationship with you and your wife or your significant other. Like it, if you don't learn how to communicate and not just talk to, right, but how to have a two-way conversation that is not only verbal but is also visual, which is also nonverbal. And like you said, if you're not able to process information, or if you're giving information that's not being received, you're not actually having conversation.
it's
And
true.
so I think those communication skills that you're talking about are extremely important, especially for for new fathers, but we're men in general. Like we're not the greatest communicators,
Right.
period. Like it just, we're not socialized to be great communicators, right? We're told to be quiet most often than not. We are supposed to just grin and take it, or be tough, and our actions are supposed to speak for us.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to using our words, we often have trouble, which is why men in a lot of situations are either non-confrontational or handle confrontation with fists,
Yep.
because we can't talk our way out of it. So I'm just going to fight my way out of it, or I'm just not going to say anything at all, and whatever happens happens. Neither one of those are good solutions. And so I think what you're doing with the communication piece is huge, and is definitely something that's super super necessary. So I want to thank you in advance for
Certainly.
what you're doing.
And thank you in
Um,
advance. I'm going to clip that and use that as an advertisement.
I'm just being honest. Um, Now, as far as I've got a bunch of stuff going on. The probably is the easiest way to kind of keep up with me and keep up with what's going on, depending on what you need or want. Um, it's probably just to follow me on social media, on
Mm,
Instagram specifically, at Forfeit Fatherhood, the number four, because everything that I do is going to be showcased or displayed there. Obviously, the store that you see on the forfeitfatherhood.com, there's some apparel, like a hoodie that I got on right
mhm.
now is on there, some shirts and things like that. But that's cool. It's not my primary focus. It's just some
Okay.
guys wanted some dad hoodies. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Um, as far as coaching, I'm full right now. I can't take on any more one-on-one clients and service them at the level that I prefer to service guys at. So it's kind of a waiting list right now. Unfortunately, I hate to say that. I'm opening up some small group stuff. So guys that want to get into some group training, just reach out to me, and I'll kind of detail how we're going to do that coming up here in October. So again, the best way to reach me is on Instagram. If you want to get to me directly, you don't want to wait. Like on Instagram, I got a bunch of people reaching out, so it takes a little bit of time. You can email me as well. The same as forfeitfatherhood@gmail.com. The number four. You'll get my attention a little bit quicker that way. And then just let me know what it is you're interested in, and I'll let you know how to get there.
Awesome. And I'll link all of that stuff into the show notes, and so that when you go to your favorite podcast platform, whether it be Spotify, Apple, Amazon, uh, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast listening or watching, Phil, you'll be able to click on the link directly and just go find Rod immediately and to his social media stuff. Sir, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. And hey, guys, just as a quick reminder, you've got to like, subscribe, rate, do all the things in order for this to grow, because guys like Rod really are going to make a difference in other men's life, but they will never know about it if you don't let them know. So share it with your friends and spread the wealth. All right, guys, thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Rod.
All right, no problem. Thank you.